Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, bringing you this band-endorsed but fan-based podcast. All about the music of Uriah Heep, covering everything they've done in the studio that I can get my hands on. You know, there may be some rare tracks out there that I can't find, but I've hunted down pretty much everything I'm aware of at this point. So we've got a ways to go, guys, and I'm really excited about today's song. We're going to get into it right now. Here it is. It's called Holdin' On. Wow, I really like that opening. It's almost kind of new agey a little bit, but it's a really nice partnership between the guitars and the synthesizers. There's a couple of different synthesizer sounds that we're hearing. I really like that pingy little tinkly one that we're hearing in the background, but the blend of it is very nice between guitar and synth as well. It sounds really good.
Lost like a precious flame, the ashes burn on. The ghost of a love we had tries to hold on.
I really like this. It feels kind of haunting, you know, while he's talking about the ghosts of their love and that sort of thing. But why do they have to fight for frequencies? We've only got two sounds that we're hearing. Again, everything's just piled on top of each other, and the vocals are a little bit muddy because of the synth trying to cut in over it. But I like the sound of the synth. It's not real crystal clear. It's kind of muted a little bit, and I think that really works. And the vocals are a little bit more crystal clear, which is nice. And it does help give that a little bit of contrast, but they should be panned at least a little bit left and a little bit right so that they have some separation and you can hear each of them clearly. Instead, we've got a couple of times where the synth is just hitting the same frequency the vocals are on and kind of canceling it out a little bit. So, you know, it's been my complaint with the last three albums, and we're going to get through this one. Don't worry. But I do find it interesting, you know, with only two instruments to still have that issue. And maybe that's what it really is. Maybe it is the keyboards and the vocals through all the songs, and it's not so much everything being centered. It's that the keyboards are playing often in the same frequency as the vocals. So I'll leave that up to possibility for sure. But as I was just about to call him Peter Gabriel, which would be completely wrong, whole different guy. I really like how Peter Goalby sounds here. He sounds like he's got that, you know, I can't let go of this. It's kind of overshadowing me sound to him that really works for this part. It's one thing to deliver a vocal and to deliver a strong vocal, an emotional vocal, something that kind of fits what's going on musically. But here, I think there's just something extra that he's adding that's really enhancing the sound of this. And maybe it is the fact that there are no other instruments and he's coming through a little bit more, and he just, you know, maybe he does have this emotion more often and we just don't really get to hear it because he's not as isolated. But I have to say, I really like it.
Tries to hold on. No communication. All systems are down. No new conversation. Never a sound. Never a sound. What's the funny?
Okay, lots going on here. First off, loved that little bit of chorus there going into the big full band again. Love the sound of Mick's guitar with just that little bit of flanger phaser on it. And I really like what he's playing there. It's you know, we're used to hearing chords and stuff. He's doing a little bit more dynamic work, and it really sounds good for this. It has that, again, that kind of cool edge to it that we've heard a little bit on this album, but it blends really nicely. And, you know, bass sounds great, drums sound great. definitely a very strong song at this point. And it just kind of came out of nowhere too. They just went from this, certain emotional place to just boom, now it's the whole band. And I like that because the song kind of started out in the reverse. We had the guitar, and then all of a sudden that just wasn't there, and the vocals came in. So there's a lot of, bigger, shocking moments musically from those adjustments. Wow, this song is changing parts quickly. I don't know if you could hear it, but at the end of that section, there were some really reverbed out quick hand claps in the background there that just, you don't necessarily notice some of these things consciously unless you're specifically listening for sounds. But they certainly added a little bit of depth, a little bit of that darkness to them, which I thought was pretty cool. Hand claps usually sound kind of, somewhat happy. But the way that they're reverbed out a little bit sounded actually a little bit cooler, more on par with that guitar sound I was talking about. I love how quickly this song is just going from part to part. I mean, it's very fast paced, not tempo wise, but just in the way of changes. Very unexpected. It's kind of like I'm trying to stay on the ride, but it's moving faster than I can keep up with, which is a rarity because usually you just know that something different is around the corner, but we're turning corners quick in this one. Even though the backing vocals are minimal, they're really powerful. They're just in this little short burst here and there, but they really sound powerful. And I love that the high harmony is back. It's nice. We haven't heard a lot of that lately. I kind of expected there was going to be a lot more of that since Lee Kerslake rejoined, but the style of the music of the time maybe had an influence on some of those decisions. Maybe there was a certain feeling that the audience would disconnect a little more because it wasn't going on as much in the industry as what they were known for doing at that time. So there's a lot of reasons that it could have been, but it's really nice to hear it. Again, it's almost like comfort food, for your ears. And it definitely feels very Uriah Heep-ish to do that. But it's a nice transition. It just goes really quick. It's really something that's hard to anticipate, but I love the transition into this part. I think it's very, very well done, very creative. And I like songs that even, when I've heard them, they can still kind of throw me a little bit because those changes are so abrupt and it just moves quickly. But it's a nice change of pace from the standard pop or rock song. Oh man, I am loving this. Just that beautiful wash of delay and reverb that really makes this huge. There's some panning there a little bit too. And since there's not a lot of other panning, this sounds a little bit, it stands out a little bit more. But it's really cool. I really dig what they're doing with the backing vocals over this. I've got to give Mick some real credit on this one because I don't know that I would have been able to come up with a decent solo for this one because, like I said, the song's got a lot of twists in it. I do like the fact that they really backed the rest of the music off to give him some room to shine on this one, though. I feel like a lot of times the keyboards and stuff, just the general sound overshadows what he's doing. But this one was very clean, very clear. I think they used the rhythm section more to drive it than having, the keyboards up in the front of the mix. But it sounded really good, and it was a very impressive solo. This would be a tough song to work over, but I think he did a great job. Ah, the return of the theremin. You got to love it. It's such a beautiful instrument. And I don't know of any band on the whole that has done more, certainly, but better work with the theremin, whether it be, Ken Hensley or John Sinclair. I think they've both done a wonderful job utilizing it and integrating it into the music, especially for a song like this, again, where we're talking about, they mentioned ghosts and they're talking about this, just feeling haunted and that. So I think it kind of just really brings that out a little bit more. But did you guys notice that as we've gone from the more keyboard oriented music to a much heavier, straightforward rock song, now the vocals are cutting through a little bit again. We don't have those keyboards fighting for that frequency. We're not using that brassy synth. We're using more effects than anything else and thickeners than we are more solo sounds. So that being the case, the vocals are now allowed to shine through because they're not competing with the same frequencies. Don't know if you noticed it, but very interesting nonetheless. Now, I've said before that I absolutely love when bands do this, especially the way that Uriah Heep does it. I love when they do these vocal layers where there's the lead singer, the backing vocals, and there's another part that comes in that kind of contradicts or works, opposing or in concert with the other vocal lines, but really stands out on its own. And they layer these three different, whether they're rhythmically done phrases or, harmonically done phrases. Either way, I love when they do that. The problem with this is I can't understand what he's saying. And that, for me, makes it a little bit frustrating. But I love the idea of what they're doing, and the performance is certainly there. The other problem, too, that was very common in this time in music is just these baths of reverb on backing vocals. Now, when they were doing that part with the delay, that was really cool. That worked out very well. But in general, when they're just singing their normal lines, they're just bathed with this extra thick coating of reverb, which really kind of prevents you from understanding what they're saying. Is you're just hearing more sound like it's an instrument than you are an actual dialogue or words or meaning or anything like that. So you take it as it was. This was the way that things were done a lot back then in pop and rock. But by the same token, it's kind of frustrating because I want to hear all those layers. I want to hear what they're saying. I want to hear how those layers work together. But unfortunately, I can't. But I love what they're doing. I just wish I could hear a little more of the definition in it so I could appreciate it even more. Okay, did I say more or more a little earlier? I'm starting to get an accent. It's really weird. I did a bunch of interviews with a Canadian band, and I'm doing some work with them now. And I found out that I've been saying the word out incorrectly for the last month or so. I've been saying it out, which would not be the way I would normally say it. But that's what happens when you hang around people with accents. Even in the emails, you hear it after a while. But anyway, this song is really cool. I could start hearing a little bit of the definition in the vocals as it began to fade out. And there I see I did it again. But the reason for that is as the song gets softer, the frequencies start to change the way that they come across a little bit. And so I was able to hear a little more clarity in that extra lead vocal line. It sounds cool. It really does. I really like it. I love the balance that they have in there of the volume wise, because I think that works. Again, it's just the panning that's causing that lack of clarity. But I think the idea of what they were doing is really, really cool. And I'm hoping that we get to hear that somewhere else before this version of the band is done. I think this has been great so far. It's really nice hearing Trevor Boulder back in the band. I think that the writing has gotten a little more solid. I feel like they're a real cohesive unit right now. I think they were great with Bob Daisley, though, too. He just had a different style on bass, but I love the stuff he was doing. But I love the stuff that Trevor Boulder is playing now as well. When he jumped back in the band, he jumped in where he left off and not where he started, which is great because he didn't seem to come in timid. Let me just, kind of get the lay of the land again. No, he just came in full force. And I'm so glad that he did because his contributions are very important. And, Lee Kerslake holding it together, just keeping that foundation of the song, did not do anything extreme on this song. No crazy drum fills. Were there any drum fills? Very little, if any. Just very straightforward, which again, very common for drummers at this time. A lot of these bands, in the rock industry, yeah, they absolutely all had real players, but a lot of bands at this point too, in the pop world, as I came to find out, did not actually have drummers. Everything was programmed. They would even go out on stage without drummers. Or bass players. It was really just weird when I went to the Lost 80s live concerts the last 2 years before COVID. I mean, you just have two people out there playing an entire band's worth of music, and everything was just sequenced because sequencing became a thing. And that is where you can do layer upon layer of different instruments recorded into your keyboard or your sampler or however they did it. And you could just regurgitate all of that. So you wouldn't actually have to pay musicians to travel. Where it got weak was on the visual side of things. I mean, imagine Uriah Heep going out there and it's just Bernie and Phil. And then Mick will walk out and do a solo and then maybe stay for the rest of the song and then walk off stage again while they start the next song. Imagine that. That would be the Uriah Heep equivalent of 80s pop music, a lot of it. And so when those bands are out there now on stage and I'm hearing a full band, or maybe the last band was a full band, and then two people come out and they're, capturing or presenting the sound of a full band, it's just really weird. Really weird. I'm still not used to that. And I've been twice and it's been a couple years since the last one. So I don't know. But so a lot of that was going on at the time. But there were a lot of weird things going on as we've talked about the production and all of that in the 80s, the repetition, the let's keep doing this as it fades out kind of thing. But I think what Uriah Heep has here is a nice combination of the two. It has a little bit of that 80s feel to it, more so in the production, I think, than the writing. But there's some really good, just gentle stuff here with the keyboards and vocals. There's some really powerful rock stuff here. Fantastic solo. And even though Lee Kerslake is not playing aggressively as a drummer, he's doing what he needs to do on this song, which is just keep the foundation. It's very straightforward. I would have liked a couple more fills, a little something to have in there to, just deal with the transition as he's so good at. But some of those would have been tough because they're so short, But in any case, no, great song. I really liked it. I can't wait to do the next one. That's it for today, guys. We'll see you in the next episode. Cheers. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magicians Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show, and thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!